It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin here at home, where President Bola Tinubu has emphasized the importance of expanding Nigeria's dairy and livestock economy, noting that with the country's growing population, the sector holds enormous potential for job creation, rural development, and food security. The president spoke on Tuesday at the State House, Abuja, while receiving Queen Mary Elizabeth of Denmark, who is visiting Nigeria as patron of the United Nations Population Fund. It was her first visit to Nigeria. The First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, co-hosted the Danish Queen. President Tinubu highlighted Nigeria's readiness to deepen cooperation with Denmark in knowledge transfer, veterinary health, and sustainable agribusiness practices. President Tinubu acknowledged Danish investments in agriculture and maritime operations and applauded the contributions of companies such as AP Moller, Maersk, and Grundfos to Nigeria's infrastructure and food systems. Queen Mary thanked President Tinubu and the First Lady for the reception and expressed sympathy over the crisis in Nigeria's northeast.
The Queen is actually the patron of the United Nations Population Fund, which is a very important United Nations organ. And you will know, of course, from memory that Mr. President's foreign policy agenda stands on 4 pillars, one of which is demography. So there's a lot of work being done in terms of population, in terms of providing food security for that population, in terms of providing education for that population, and the fact that we're going to be 400 million by the year 2050. So this is a common denominator between what the Queen is emphasizing on and working on, and what the First Lady also is working on. It's something that she's been committed to from her days as First Lady in Lagos, and then subsequently as a Senator of the Federal Republic, and today as First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Now, in other news, Vice President Kashim Shettima says that Nigeria's agricultural partnership with Brazil, known as the Green Imperative, is a major step in the country's drive for food security and economic transformation. He was speaking at the opening of the second Nigeria-Brazil strategic dialogue in Abuja, where both nations signed a series of new agreements across agriculture, defense, energy, and other sectors. Here's a report.
A diplomatic red carpet welcome as Brazil's Vice President Geraldo Alckmin arrived in Abuja for high-level talks, the second Nigeria-Brazil strategic dialogue mechanism. At the meeting, Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima highlights the over $1 billion Green Imperative Agricultural Initiative as a key symbol of the partnership.
This project will deliver mechanized farming equipment, training, and service centers across the country. It will create jobs, raise productivity, and help secure Nigeria's ambition to feed itself and others. The Green Imperative is a flagship of this partnership, and one we are determined to deliver.
The Green Imperative, jointly developed by both countries, aims to deploy mechanized farming equipment, training, and service centers across Nigeria. While not new, the project was reiterated as a cornerstone of bilateral ties.
Of the MOU by both Vice Presidents.
7 memorandum of understanding were signed on the first day of talks. They include a defense cooperation agreement, an MOU on technical energy cooperation, and deals covering livestock, food security, tourism, audiovisual exchange, and counter-narcotics collaboration.
Our intention is to build partnerships with Africa aimed at mutual development across the economic, social, and environmental dimensions. In particular, through concrete actions to eradicate hunger and poverty and to reduce social inequalities on both sides of the Atlantic.
We hope to work hand in gloves with Embrapa and other private sector players whom I have visited in Brazil when I was there during the second Africa-Brazil dialogue.
Nigeria is open for business. Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, has been in Brazil himself and will be again in Brazil in 2 weeks' time to continue these discussions. His last visit yielded over $2.5 billion in investments coming to Nigeria from Brazil.
Brazil's vice president described the partnership as results-oriented and values-based. He praises Nigeria's participation at the Brazil-Africa Dialogue on Food Security and invites the country to COP30 later this year.
We must cooperate on these crucial issues to our countries and to the world. And we have made a lot of progress. It is with great satisfaction that we witness the important results achieved on several fronts of cooperation.
Brazilian delegation also met with President Tinubu at the presidential villa for further bilateral discussions.
The Brazilian industrialization is very progressive. I know it struggles with democracy too. It's progressive. I think we can do so much together.
As discussions continue, officials say follow-through will be key to turning these agreements into results. The day's engagements are expected to conclude with a state banquet in honor of the visiting delegation. Adesua Omoruan, Arise News.
And now to legislative issues, as the Senate has approved a fresh extension of the capital component of the 2024 national budget, shifting its implementation date to December 31st, 2025. The decision was reached during plenary on Tuesday following the presentation and swift passage of an amendment bill to the Appropriation Act. The legislation, read and passed through first, second and third readings in a single sitting, received overwhelming support from lawmakers. Deputy Senate President Senator Barao Jibrin announced the resolution following the adoption of the report by the Senate Committee on Supply. The debate was led by the chairman of the Senate Committee on Appropriation, Senator Solomon Adeola, that's APC Ogun West, who defended the need for the extension. According to Senator Adeola, the additional time is necessary to enable the federal government to complete several ongoing projects captured under the 2024 budget. And now the Nigeria police has confirmed the arrest of 53 suspects for their alleged involvement in the recent killings in Benue and Plateau states, including 26 arrested for the massacre at Yelwata community within Guma local government area of Benue state. Arise News security correspondent Ferdinand Druhowa reports.
How come no arrest has been made? I expect there should be arrests of those criminals.
Barely a week after President Bola Tinubu directed Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetokun and the Chief of Defense Staff Christopher Musa to immediately arrest rampaging invaders who killed over 100 persons in Yelwata community in Benue State, the Inspector General of Police has confirmed the arrest of 28 suspects. At a press briefing at the force headquarters in Abuja, Egbetokun revealed that the arrest of 2 prime suspects who were masterminds of the attacks led to the breakthrough.
I am pleased to inform you today that 26 persons directly connected to this crime have so far been arrested and their weapons recovered. On 19th June 2025, 2 prime suspects who were masterminds of this attack were apprehended from their hideout. This arrest led to the arrest of 7 other suspects the following day, 20/06/2025. On 22nd June, a major breakthrough was recorded with the arrest of 18 other suspects who directly took part in the killings. And on 23rd June, our detectives recovered 2 general-purpose machine guns and 8 AK-47 rifles, which were part of the weapons used during the attack.
In a related incident, the IGP says 22 suspects have also been arrested in connection with a gruesome act of mob violence, which led to the killing of 9 passengers in Mangu, Plateau State. The wedding guests from Zaria, Kaduna State, were attacked and killed by a mob after they lost their way and inadvertently ran into a tense and volatile situation in Mangu, a community that is grappling with sustained terrorist attacks.
So far, 22 suspects have also been arrested in connection with this gruesome act of mob violence. They too will face the full wrath of the law in court. Again, yesterday, 23/06/2025, another ugly incident was recorded in Benue State, where 2 persons traveling in a truck were killed at Adon area, North Bank, Makurdi. 5 persons connected to this incident have so far been arrested and will also be made to face the full weight of the law.
The IGP condemned the recent trend of reprisal killings, where innocent citizens are murdered in retaliation for crimes committed by others, calling it barbaric, senseless, and dangerous. The suspects who have arrived in Federal Capital Territory will face charges and be convicted if found guilty. Ferdinand Durocher, Arise News.
Well, this is certainly a positive development because we are all asking, yes, why have there been no arrests? Of course, the president led that charge as well. Good to see.
Yes, we asked why don't we have arrests. In fact, we quoted what Brian Babangida did say, to Etimi Yang back in the days as regards Anini. And the IGP has brought us people. We just want to see the investigation go on, and we ascertain the true nature of who these people are. They are suspects. We want to see them go through the full, provisions of the law, and we want to see prosecutions. We don't just want to see it end as parade. That's the most important thing. Secondly, we have to state this very strongly, that we want progress and development in Nigeria. And in wanting progress and development in Nigeria, we should also get a level of scrutiny that is beyond board. I'll go to the agreement signed between Nigeria and Brazil, and I'll focus on agriculture. The GIP, Green Initiative Pact or something. I hear there's about $1 billion worth in this agreement, and I hear the emphasis it can extend up to $8 billion. But the part that is quite nebulous for me in all of this is, who is funding it? I see part of the funding agreement will be with some banks. Is that going to be at any cost to Nigeria? And I see some of the deliverables. Agricultural centers across the country, over 700 of them, extension centers. Yes, these things are positive. But I also see tractors in there. There's going to be a sort of like a build, operate, and transfer where they assemble tractors and everything here. And they're putting a quote for about 10,000 tractors over a period of time. The question is, if we had this coming, why was there a need for Belarus? Secondly, there are local tractor manufacturers in this country. People like Bob Track, I now hear, and many other ones. And please, these local manufacturers of tractors, come out. Because if we have something in place already, and we are going to sign sort of like a assemblage plant mechanism with people, how do we support our own local businesses here? In fact, I got proper information as regards Bob Track yesterday that Governor Sule Lamido of Nasarawa, in fact, even taking photo ops with their tractors. And they have an assemblage plant here. So why are we taking all of this? So we've had deals with Belarus. There's another one signed by the minister that I talked about in January this year that has to do, with some sales rep of John Deere. This Brazilian deal also is having tractors in it. I'm not saying I don't want mass farming mechanization. I love it. But also, can we have scrutiny and answer these questions that we've asked for the development of this country? So what is this about this deal? Hope is not going to bring any cost to Nigeria. Is it that the Brazilians are bringing the 8 billion in faces just to come and invest here? And those banks, because I'm seeing banks, I'm seeing loans, maybe they should throw more clarification. Maybe I don't understand it. And that's why I have the right, as enshrined in Section 22 of the Constitution, to be able to ask questions. Secondly, multiple budget cycle is another big problem. In fact, into 2024, we're running 2023 budget cycle. Now we're extending 2024 budget cycle into the end of 2025. Nobody runs cost accounting this way. The president is an accountant. He knows better. We don't run proper accounts in this way. It will bring a lot of shenanigans in the system. It's already bringing. You are going to have a lot of projects, underfunded projects here and there. Look at the health minister saying the other day that out of his capital budget, only about 10 to 15% of it had been funded. Also, it's going to bring into scrutiny the case of budget performance. It's also going to bring into scrutiny the case of appropriation when it comes to debts. Because we are running many multiple budget cycles at the same time. Then how can we provide accountability? Till today, when the president was giving his budget speech the last time, he said, oh, the budget did very well. Performance did very well. We also hear another figure of 50%. Till today, what's the empirical figure of the budget performance? And how has it permeated into the budget ecosystem? Because you see, a lot of people are also looking at the trickle-down effect of the budgets to be able to jumpstart some key sectors of the economy. But we are not seeing all of that. So we're having a modeled-up budget cycle, many budget cycles running concurrently and all of that. How do you get the appropriation of funds? Even supplementary budget cycles are also running concurrently. So it's not only like a previous year budget cycle, supplementary cycles are also running concurrently. And it's all a case of mumbo-jumbo. Question is, where is going to be the clarity in all of this? At least the Senate should help us unpack all of this. There's no sense of clarity, there's no sense of accountability in the way all of this is being run, and it will bring about problems. I yield the floor.
Okay, let me comment on some of the subjects, even if I don't cover the field. First, Brazil. We listened to Minister of Trade, Industry and Investment, MITI, Jumoke Oduwole, saying that, oh, the previous time when the Brazilians visited, the conversation was about $2.5 million. This time around, the Brazilians are going to make available about $1 billion to support Nigeria's agricultural chain. Yesterday, we discussed President Tinubu, about the agricultural chain and also the effort by Belarus and his friend, a certain Alexander, whom he said was his classmate. Now, the questions we will ask is this. First, let me start with Brazil. Brazil is one of the major global powerhouses in agriculture in the world. Brazil supplies about 19% of basic commodities in the world, including coffee, soybeans, and other products. And Brazil is also noted in terms of innovation, in terms of technological advancement, in terms of its own international market share, which is about 19%, as I pointed out. So Brazil, either it is beef you are talking about, or poultry, or juice, or sugarcane, or coffee, it's a major global powerhouse. So Nigeria and Brazil coming together on the subject of agriculture, I think it's good optics. Second time around. Now, Jumoke Oduwole mentioned $2.5 billion. This time around, we're told $1 billion. Now, this money that they are mentioning, is it a grant? Is it loan? Who is going to pay? So, in other words, there are questions about technical agreement. We were told about implements. Now, is Brazil going to dump implements here? Is Brazil going to provide training opportunities? Because when the president was talking yesterday about Belarus and his schoolmate, a certain Alexander, he was talking about training going to be provided. Is that part of the package with Brazil? Or they will come and dump implements here, and then we will have a loan of already over $3.5 billion on our head that we will pay for. Vice President Shettima, commending the initiative and supporting it, is in order. When he was governor of Borno State, he also focused on agriculture. And by the time he was leaving, he had about over 1,000 tractors just waiting there. But the security situation in Borno State, escalated. I don't know what they are doing with those 1,000 tractors. So Shettima speaking knows something about agriculture, depending, based on his own efforts in that part of the country. So we need more details. Details in terms of technical management, details in terms of the money involved, Details in terms even of political will. Now and technical management. Let me concentrate on the political will. This is not the first time in Nigeria that governments will talk about agricultural mechanization. It is good optics for President Tinubu to say agricultural mechanization, renewed hope. We did it before. Once upon a time in this country, Fiat, I think there's a company called that,
yes,
used to manufacture agricultural equipment in Kano State. There's a company also called Steyr,
yes,
S-T-E-Y-R.
Yes,
they used to have an operation in Bauchi. What happened to them? What happened that the mechanization program of the past could not yield any result. So these are the issues involved in this particular matter. And the responsibility, the buck stops at the desk of the Minister of Agriculture, and particularly at the desk of the President of Nigeria, so that we are not given the impression, that this is all about optics. We as Nigerians are interested in outcomes. And yesterday I made the point about, look, ensuring that this is actually real. This is not just optics. You have Belarus, the certain Alexander that the president talked about, which we discussed yesterday. You have Brazil this morning. The issue is about coordination. Now, the Nigerian government does not own farmlands. The Nigerian government, federal government, has no farmlands anywhere. It's about the states. What's the level of collaboration with the states? Farmer Bago in Niger State is doing a lot with agriculture. Governor Dauda Lawal in Zamfara State is reviving agriculture. In Lagos State, Jide Sanwo-Olu, who is 60 today, is also doing a lot in terms of agriculture. And where is the private sector in all of this arrangement? That's why I talk about the managerial gap. There's a company called Origin Tech. They are collaborating with Lagos State government and Niger State government. Perhaps there are other private sector companies apart from Origin that can be in this. Because if you make it a federal government project, a federal government that does not own farmlands, how are you going to process all of this? So there are questions more than answers. Optics, good, but there are details that we need to be told by both the Ministry of Agriculture and the President of Nigeria. What is that other thing you brought up? Budget. They say they have extended budget till December 2025. Now, this is the second time we're doing that. The budget cycle, when we return to it, we praised it. We said budget cycle, January to December, submit your budget on time. It was a good development, as was the case in the past. Now, the APC government, let me say APC because it's Buhari and Tinubu combined, tried to address that. But last year, in December, this same Tinubu administration asked for an extension till June 30. Now they have come again. They have said extend it till December 2025. And in what looks like a curious, ironic confirmation of some of the statements we have made on this table, the Senate, the Red Chamber, they did first reading, second reading, third reading, and they rubber-stamped the request of the president. So when we say that the Senate is a rubber-stamped Senate, this is a clear demonstration of it. They rushed it through. Nobody was even smart enough to interrogate what is happening. What happened to our celebration of the budget cycle? And it was Yayi, Solomon Adeola, senator, who proposed the bill. So it's important that they keep to the budget cycle. And I said yesterday that, okay, Edwin was saying we are making 6.9 trillion naira in the first quarter, 40% increase year on year, and all of that. What are they doing with that money? Where is that money? Capital projects are not being funded. The federal government of Nigeria is cash-strapped. People in Guguru defense, well, okay, civil defense, they call them.
Don't be like that. It's not fair.
Okay.
How will you call
civil defense? Civil defense. They are not being paid salaries. MDAs are not paying salaries. So where is the money going? When they share the money monthly to the state governors, to the state governments, there's nothing left for capital projects. And now they are extending 2024 budget. So in 2026, they will extend 2025 projects. So we need more creative accounting. And the president of Nigeria, being an accountant, a chartered accountant, we expect something better from him. Now, what was that other topic? Queen Mary of Denmark, visiting. Yes, well, good optics again, optics. And the president talked about Denmark cooperating with Nigeria with regard to agriculture, livestock production. But more important is the presence of the First Lady, Mrs. Remi Tinubu, who is also collaborating with the patron of the UN FPA in the areas of out-of-school children, school feeding programs. I think it's good optics. I mean, I always say that the president of Nigeria is the chief foreign affairs policy maker. And so we see President Tinubu, apart from domestic issues, also focusing on foreign policy. And he seems to be doing a good job in that regard. Now, you say that the Inspector General of Police has announced that 28 suspects, or is it 22, have been arrested. Persons who were involved in the violence in Yelwata in Niger State, attacking people who were going for a wedding. No, there's something curious about this. It had to take the president of Nigeria visiting Benue State to complain about the security agencies, for the security agencies, in this case, the Nigerian police, to suddenly wake up and arrest over 20 persons. That's their statutory job. So must the president of Nigeria complain before the security agencies act? Must he visit a place of crisis and agony and frustration and fear and displacement before the security agencies will come about 1 week later and say we have arrested people? No, I think the security agencies, as much as we try to be fair to them, knowing that the challenges that they face are enormous, must be alert. They must do their job. They must not sleep on the assignment. So the Nigerian police saying we have arrested 28 suspects. I hope those 28 or 22 suspects will not disappear from detention and that we will not hear anything about the matter again. So maybe they too are doing their own optics to impress President Tinubu. President Tinubu is not the policeman. People have been given the job. They should do their job. And when they function as they should, under the Constitutive Acts, Police Act and the Constitution, sections 214, 215 thereof, we will commend them. Not optics, please.
Absolutely, that is agreed, because as much as 26 were arrested in Yelwata, 22 in Plateau, 5 others elsewhere in Benue for other crimes, reaching that total reaching 53. There are the Kaduna killings. We want to see arrests in those. There have been incidents in Enugu. We want to see arrests there. There have been incidents in many other parts, Borno State, all over the country. We want to see arrests all over the country. Not only do we want to see arrests, we want to see timely judicial processes and convictions where they are warranted. We want to see the full wheel of justice turning, and it should not grind slowly when the matters are those of our state's security, our national security. It needs to grind effectively, because in this case, justice delayed could be justice denied, because these people, these perpetrators of these unspeakable acts, are still roaming amongst us, and none of us is entirely safe until they have been arrested and brought to book and convicted. Very important. Now, I'll go quickly to the issues concerning the capital budgets. The extension of the deadline from June 30 to December of this year, which would be the second extension. And what makes this curious is that in the next 4 months, we will also see the presentation of the 2026 budget. So that means that in 4 months' time, we're going to have a strange situation in this country where 2 budgets are running and a third is being discussed and presented. What is the meaning of this? I think it's time for the National Assembly to answer the question, are we in a state of crisis? Why do I ask this? Because this is such a strange and peculiar phenomenon that is only normally seen in crisis-ridden nations. What are some examples? Well, we saw a similar incident happening here in Nigeria, and this was under COVID. 2020-2021, we saw some budget overlaps for obvious reasons because of the crisis caused by COVID. When you look around the world, what are some of the examples of countries that have gone down this road? South Sudan, also 2020-2021, and we know that that is because of issues persisting in that country. Lebanon ran 2 budgets concurrently after they'd gone about 12 years without a national budget. So they had to run the 2 budgets concurrently so that they could catch up on 12 years without any budget approval. Afghanistan in the early 2000s also ran 2 annual budgets concurrently, and this was, of course, as a part of their attempts to rebuild after post-Taliban, from the post-Taliban period. Zimbabwe also ran 2 budgets concurrently at a time when hyperinflation rendered the last budget absolutely useless and unimplementable because the values there no longer meant anything. So my question today to the National Assembly is Nigeria in a state of crisis? Because when we critiqued this budget, just as journalists, we already pointed the fact that it was over-ambitious. Now, one thing that is critical in the world of finance is that as much as one must be ambitious, it's more important for one to be pragmatic, to be practical, and to be empirical, as Rufai would say. Where was the empirical data that proved that that budget could be implemented? Was there no due diligence? We saw how quickly that budget was passed, so it seemed it was more important to posture and pander to the audience and impress people that a budget was passed quickly, that there was no finer inspection of the line items on that budget. Now, Senator Siriake Dixon made a very salient point in his submissions during this debate on the floor yesterday when he said that what's curious is that most of the recurrent spending has been spent. It's the capital projects that are hanging. So what does this mean? This means that if we were able to reduce some of our recurrent spending, as we've been advocating for, if we were able to cut our coat according to our size, that means there would have been more money left over to spend on capital projects. You now have contractors lamenting, some of which have spent their own money to get projects going, and they're stranded. The money is not being paid. So this is a critical moment because as the National Assembly, we now ask ourselves, what have you been doing? The job of the National Assembly isn't to extend budget deadlines. The budget of the National Assembly is oversight and accountability. That means that as the budget has been rolling out, they haven't been asking questions. And the same thing applies to the 2025 budget, where we are seeing so many strange line items, street lights going for hundreds of millions of naira and so forth. But we are not seeing that role of oversight and accountability from the National Assembly. So again, I repeat, is Nigeria in crisis? Because maybe now is the time to speak up, because right now the writing on the wall is not encouraging in terms of building confidence between the people and the government, specifically the National Assembly, who are supposed to be holding this budget to account, keeping track of it, keeping tabs of it, and ensuring that it's truly delivering dividends to the people. As I round up very quickly, developments from Brazil are encouraging. Brazil is the biggest exporter of food to the world, and their agricultural revolution has been a thing to marvel. But at the risk of repeating what has already been said, the issues around it are all about the modalities, the implementation, and how we will ensure that all of these huge deals that look good on paper will trickle down to the common man who is farming, whether it be in Abeokuta or in Plateau State.